When you return home, straight out of combat, that's a tough row to hoe because your mind is still over there. There needs to be a period of adjustment.
During reintegration, you go through the honeymoon stage that everybody always talks about, that you come home and everything is great at first.
Things are so nice when you come back initially, then the regular life sets in.
When I came back from Iraq, my wife and my children were great, you know. I'd seen them for 7 days, and all of a sudden, my wife goes to work, kids go to school, I'm by myself, and all I'm doing is thinking about my 43 soldiers.
The first couple of months I was back, I was just so happy to be alive that there was this kind of state of euphoria. But I distinctly remember a jet flew over and the loud noise of that happening, this inner rage just came out, and I was so mad that I felt like I wanted to kill somebody, and it surprised the heck out of me. It was like, where did that come from?
When I returned home, people were asking me how it was, and I was kind of sharing my stories a little bit, but I got the sense of they really couldn't relate to what I had been through because they hadn't been there. So I just stopped talking about it.
You're almost like a stranger when you come back. Everything's different. You're kind of discombobulated.
I could be driving down the road. You would think that there was a million things in the road because I'd be swerving left and right. Whether you're walking around in the mall or something, you know, head constantly on a swivel. Being stopped at red lights, being in a crowded place, being in a lot of traffic. Those were the things that I noticed big when I came back, that I'd have to, you know, check myself. Okay, Josh, you're not in Iraq no more. You're sitting at a red light, you know, on Main Street.
After my leg was amputated, I felt like I'm not the same person anymore. What will my life be like in the future? How will I be able to walk? And more importantly, how will I be able to support my family?
One of the ways I really coped when I first came home was to just stay busy. Because the busier I was, the less I thought about it. But I got tired. I got really tired, really fast. And that's when things started to slide.
Nobody goes into combat and comes out unaffected. Nobody. Everybody's changed. Everybody has some experience. Everybody has something that happens. The thing that we want to have happen is that people are actively learning and growing and developing from whatever experience they have, and having it be a growth experience rather than a traumatic experience.
I can tell now when Adrian is on the brink of maybe a panic attack, or I know the things that are going to trigger his anxieties because I've researched, but I also know my husband now, and I know how he is now in the new context.
The relationship is going to change. Things are going to be different. The spouse that's left back is going to have to take on responsibilities that didn't have to be taken on before. And then when you come back together, you've both grown and experienced things in a different way. So it's recognizing that and then saying, okay, our relationship is a little different now because of our individual experiences, but how do we build on that and make that something that we can both learn from and make the most of? You're really trying to figure out what the new normal is for the relationship, and then figuring out how to communicate in a way that works for both of you.
Be open with your family as appropriate, and connect. Don't try and walk away from it. Don't hide it from the family, but also don't dump the entire thing on them all at once. Most important thing for me was I was able to share with my wife when I came home, honey, here's 2 or 3 things that I've been through. They give me nightmares periodically. I get right on the verge, or no kidding, anxiety attacks sometimes, and I don't know why. Here's the things that I think trigger that. If you see me behaving in the following way, do me a favor, take 2 minutes, step aside, put an arm around my shoulder, and sit down with me and let's talk about it. Or just know to back off for about 5 minutes if I'm not looking so good. Give me a little bit of space and I'll get through it. But I expressed that to her, and when I didn't feel good, I would tell her. Just to prevent an innocent family interaction, normal arguments that you have in the home, from escalating to something stupid. And she'd know what I was dealing with, she'd know what to watch, and if she saw me really feeling down, that she'd either personally pull me aside and help me, or she'd take me to somebody that could assist me.
I know when things bother him now before he knows, because I know what his triggers are. Everyone has their own triggers. They're different, and it's important to know what they are, so that when your spouse is upset 10 minutes from then, and you don't know why, you got to the party and they're just devastated, it's because they saw something, and you have to be ready for that. And maybe they can't go to that party that night. You know, maybe they need to step outside and they need that space, and you need to use those tools to know your husband, know yourself, know your family, and kind of know your limitations until you get to a better place.
First of all, you have to be patient and you have to listen to what your soldier is saying. And when you see the cloud coming over, back down just a little bit. Don't. It's not that big a deal if he doesn't take the trash out. You did it for a year to 15 months. It's not going to hurt you to do it one more day. It's not that big a deal if he doesn't get the yard mowed when he said he's going to. Just give him a day. Give him time to work through it.
It was the second tour that I started to really feel it grinding down on me. I couldn't find anything that we were doing that was advancing the ball down the field. We essentially was kind of just driving around until we got blown up.
I could tell when he walked in the door of the hangar. He wasn't the same man. He would say things and his eyes would get black. He would have a deep, dark look in his eyes, and that was not Jeff at all. We just kept hoping that things would get better, but it wasn't.
The impact on the girls, when I came back, I became more and more distant. I used to do everything with them. That all ended. That was not important to me anymore. I didn't want them to be part of what was going on with me. I looked at my bike to just get away from everybody. So I'd get on it and I would literally ride 1,000 miles. My back would just be killing me by the time I got off it, and I didn't care. It was the further I could go. If I could have drove it into the ocean at that time, I would have. But in the deepest throes of the depression that hit me, I stopped riding it altogether. I was gonna sell the bike. I didn't need it anymore. I was selling off all my possessions. I didn't want anything anymore.
I worried. I never, ever worried before until he started telling me, I just want you to go away. Take everything, take the kids, and just go away. And I knew I couldn't leave him alone.
I started viewing suicide as a way to just stop. I was just wanting to turn off the 600 TV sets that was going on in my head all the time. I couldn't handle it no more. So I started having suicide ideations to the point where I was actually in the backyard with a pistol, thinking about killing myself.
We had just finished a mission with training the Iraqi army, and now we were headed to Kirkuk. As I was driving, I hit that IED. I ended up at Brooke Army Medical Center for almost 7-8 months. I experienced 17 surgeries total, and there were times when I was in that hospital where I thought to myself, man, I don't know if I can go on like this. And then when they took my leg away, I actually thought about taking my life.
And the only thing that really stopped me was thinking, my God, my kids are gonna come home from school and find me this way.
Jeff's frustration and anger really had reached a peak. At the same time, his wife expressed to my wife concern, and then to me directly, that Jeff was very negative at home. He seems hopeless. He does not see a path to the future. As soon as I had that cue, plus my own personal interaction with Jeff and his decreasing physical performance on the job, I knew that we had to take him for professional care. So basically what I did is I called directly over to mental health. I saw them and I told them, if you're not able to help him immediately, if you are not capable of making this happen here, then you need to call me immediately. If he's non-cooperative or doesn't show up, contact me immediately. I will be involved in this until we get him to the person or place that we need.
Colonel Pinnell noticed and helped me find the right program in Washington, D.C., and he recommended that I go to that. It felt like the cat was out of the bag, and there's no way I can put it back in. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. And believe it or not, about 100 pounds of weight came off of me right then.
I started to see a little bit of hope in his eyes, and he asked me to go with him. And that was hopeful for me, because at that point, I didn't know where we were going to be by the end of the year.
So Sherry spent group time with us, where she could hear other soldiers saying the same thing that I was saying. She was able to understand that, yeah, there is some pretty dark holes there. And for me to understand that she sat back home worried to death about me, trying to stay strong, trying to have a face for the rest of the family who's constantly asking, how's Jeff doing?
and not knowing, because I don't call, you know, I could see the stress on her and the strain, and we kind of came to a middle ground where we could start talking about these things, and it helped us. So don't be afraid to come forward if you have trouble.
What changed was I began to reach out for support. I began to think about all these things need to be talked about. And so I began my recovery. And from there, I began to not only physically, but mentally and holistically approach my life, and to see that my life wasn't over and that I could conquer my challenge. PTSD can be treated. It looks like this for me. At times, I have night terrors and I relive being back on that battlefield. What you do is you learn how to handle that, but you also have someone you can talk to about it as well. Not only can you use your support system through your church, but through your family, through the vet centers, or just individuals that are your comrades that you served with. It's truly important that you have a support system.
It really wasn't until a mutual friend of ours says, "Dave, I've known you a long time, and I got to tell you, you're not the happy-go-lucky, positive guy that I used to know. Are you okay?" And that's when it really hit me that I said, you know, Ivona's been telling me that for months now, and I was kind of brushing her off. So having someone else point that out was the spark for me to realize, well, I guess I'm really not there yet, and need to work on that, and need to get some help with working on that.
My name is Stacy Pearsall. I'm a staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force, retired. As a combat photographer, my mission ran the gamut from heavy combat, the most extreme combat, to taking pictures of dead bodies in the morgue. I saw people blown apart. I saw the most horrific things you could ever imagine, and I had to take pictures of it. I can't erase those pictures. My first deployment in Baghdad, I was struck by an improvised explosive device. I injured my neck when I impacted my head into the driver's seat in front of me. At the time, I didn't know it, but I was later diagnosed with traumatic brain injury. I went through physical therapy, but the stress from the improvised explosive device and some other scenarios that I had witnessed kept me from sleeping at night, and I didn't recognize what was happening.
When we got to Iraq, our mission was to support U.S. Marine Corps and Army advisors across the entire Al Anbar province. These teams were out by themselves, and they would very seldom, if ever, see a chaplain because of their isolation. I would go out and provide counseling, religious services. The hardest parts of the deployment, one, I'd had a lot of experience as a trauma department chaplain. I've seen a lot of death. But when I got there and actually saw our wounded Marines and soldiers, prayed with them, anointed them, that was one of the really hard things, was to see what war does to these warriors. I had studied a lot about PTSD and dealt with Marines who had it. I thought I was pretty much untouchable to it because I thought I'd seen everything, but I was really surprised by some of the things I saw and the impact that they had, the sights, the smells especially, the exhaustion of the travel. We went through some of the most dangerous areas of Iraq, occasionally got shot at, and there was always an understanding that Al-Qaeda had chaplains at the top of their target list. When I came back to the States, I just felt so disconnected from people, church. I didn't even know if God still existed. And that was one of the most painful parts of my life. Prayer became really hard. Just doing life became hard. I was depressed, angry, on edge all the time.
I went on a temporary duty to Washington, D.C. for a few weeks and met up with an old friend who was a frog in the Navy, and he was a photographer during Vietnam. And he said, "Stacy, do you realize that you have some symptoms from post-traumatic stress disorder?" And I said, "No, I don't. I just have some problems sleeping. I can handle everything else." And he said, "Well, let me do this. I'm going to contact my team leader at my vet center and then I'll have him contact the one in Charleston, and then they'll be in touch. And he assured me that it would remain anonymous from my active duty command. A few days later, I got a phone call from the Charleston Vet Center, and I started going and getting therapy from them. I think it takes real strength to seek help. I kept my mental health care secret for so long. In a predominantly male unit, the last thing I wanted them to know was that I was having issues, because they seemed to be coping fine. And it took that other person, a Vietnam-era person, to grab my hand and say, here's the vet center. And I started to realize that I wasn't the only one suffering from post-traumatic stress or battle fatigue or all the other names that they have for it. And once I started opening up to my colleagues, that one little crack opened the floodgates, and then I had a ton of people coming to me about, well, where did you go? What should I do? What are the symptoms? How can I get help? And I found that by sharing my story or my experiences, I might be able to help others deal with theirs.
Finally, our medical officer did an assessment and was convinced that I was really beginning to suffer PTSD, and got me connected with the Deployment Health Clinic at Portsmouth Naval Medical Center. And I started seeing a therapist there, trying to figure out how to deal with my experience. For me, writing is something that allows me to work through things that if I didn't write them out would gnaw at me. And some of that deals with my own struggle with PTSD and faith. Some of it deals with how I see the world now. And then part of it is those things that are part of me. My dad, growing up, baseball. About the only place I can be in a crowd of people and still feel really safe is at a baseball game. And part of it's just the way the diamond's laid out and just the peacefulness of it. My role as a chaplain is to provide the spiritual support for people as they make this journey and as they begin to open up about what they've gone through. But many times it requires more than just a chaplain. And so I'll say, you know, I know it's scary, but I think that you need to seek the help of a mental health professional because it's a way to get better. And I tell them my experiences, which are good experiences with both of the therapists I've had, that they understood and they didn't push me into some track that I was unable to go to. I realize you can't go back. You can't go back to what you were. You have to adapt to what you are. Do you want to be healthy? Yes. Do you want to be well-adjusted? Yes. Does that mean you're going to be the same person you were before you went to war? No. Nobody is. But that's okay if we open ourselves up to get help. It's not something that we're going to be better overnight. What it will be, though, is a step on the way to healing, a step on the way to integrating those experiences with our daily life now. I don't think it is weakness to seek help. In fact, I think it's a sign of strength. I think it's a sign that you want to move forward. And what I hope is that when I spend time with people, when I share with people, when I listen to people, that I can help them to begin that process if they haven't already started, and to encourage them if they're already getting some therapy. Provide that extra bit of support, that extra bit of connection, so that they don't feel that they're alone.
To be fully fit, you don't just have to be physically fit, you also have to be mentally fit. And so for me, a real warrior is a leader who will show genuine compassion, care, and concern for his soldiers.
When I came home, I couldn't find enjoyment in anything. I couldn't even enjoy being around my own kids. I was distant from everybody in my family.
I realized that I needed to engage him and make sure he was good and make sure everything was going fine.
He goes, "What's bothering you?" He knew something was up. And I told him, I said, "I'm about to lose it, sir. You know, I started telling him everything that had been going on, and I said, I've got to do something."
The CO actually personally picked up the phone and lined up inpatient treatment.
It seemed like from that day on, things started getting better. After my 3 months was up there, I came back.
And he came back in and checked in at my door, and I said, "All right, get to work, let's go." And it's been great.
I know if I didn't have a CO like him and a command like I had, and the kind of family I had, that I might have not made it through this and gotten better. I think the reason why I waited so long to finally get help for my PTSD, it wasn't that I was afraid that, you know, my command was going to look down on me, or they wasn't going to be there to support me, or I'd be black labeled or nothing like that. I think I basically had to swallow that lump they call pride in your throat.
I haven't thought any different of him. As a matter of fact, I actually respect him and trust him more now because of the fact that he had a problem, he had an issue, he brought it to me. Together we figured it out, we fixed it, and he's as good or better Marine now and in the future. He's a trusted agent for me.
Sergeant Hopper's been an inspiration. His actions, how he dealt with this like a man, like a Marine, inspires us all to do better. Right now, he can do whatever he wants. He's got an unlimited future in the Marine Corps.
There's not a commanding officer out there or a leadership staff out there that doesn't want to help. It's sometimes challenging for a young Marine to come to a senior staff member or senior officer in the unit and tell him he's got a problem. We're all Marines. I'm just like the rest of them. I just want to help, and just like they do. So don't hesitate. Come ask.
I think it takes real strength for anyone to go get help for psychological issues. Being active duty in the military, you're kind of, you know, branded with he's the tough guy. You know, he's either the Marine, the soldier, the sailor, you know, the airman. You know, they go fight our wars for, you know, keep our country free. You already kind of got a chip on your shoulder that those kind of things aren't, you know, supposed to bother you or get to you. So it all comes back to, it takes real strength to swallow your pride and to say, I need help, and to go actually get the help.
The person who left is not the person who's going to come back. Just as the spouse is not the same person who you left at home, things change. They mostly change in a positive direction, honestly. And over time, you see that. Sometimes when you come home, it can seem negative, distressing, and concerning. It can all be gotten through and will be gotten through, but you got to understand you're not going to be the same person afterwards that you were before you deployed, and don't try to be. Accept who you are, accept that life experience, and now figure out how to move forward and make that positive.
You know, Jeff Hall's story is interesting because Jeff likes to talk about one of the most constructive, informative moments that he experienced post-deployment was when he was just playing stickball and telling stories with his soldiers. To me, stickball and storytelling creates therapy and resilience. And so come home and share your story and reach out to those family members and reach out to those networks of providers that we're given and put your story in context so that you truly understand what it is that you went through and why you're feeling what you're feeling.